Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Phil Does 3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the United States, 11 AM in Australia and 12 AM in the UK. Again guys, daylight savings has started in the US. That's why if you're not in the United States, my stream will be an hour earlier because of daylight savings in the US. So it's 11 AM in Australia, 12 AM in the UK. When the UK goes into daylight savings, then it will go back to 1 AM in the UK. But just for clarification, and you're not sure, you can keep an eye on my Twitter page at Phil Does 3D because I always post 15 minutes before I go live there. Or just do a conversion of your time to American Pacific time, and when it hits 5 PM Pacific time in the US on a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, that's when I'm live. So let's jump into what we were doing yesterday. Just for anyone new to the stream, I'm creating an Art Deco building in Unreal Engine 4, but what we're doing at the moment is we're updating the assets, because I originally created the building back in 2011 in UDK. I'm updating it now to check out the new lighting that's available in Unreal Engine 4. So we're going to be recreating that Art Deco building, exterior and interior, in Unreal Engine 4.15 once we've updated the assets to make them a little better from when I created them 6 years ago. Yesterday we were working on this door. It's actually not a door, it's a wall panel. So we're going to continue doing that today, I think. So basically what I was doing, the original wall panel was just a flat plane. But because we're working with graphics cards that are 6 years older than when this was originally created, and we're working with an updated Unreal Engine from version 3 to version 4, we're going to be updating our assets to make them a little bit more detailed and look a little better in the Unreal Engine. So that's what we're doing here. Max can be very fiddly for me for some reason with my when I'm panning around. So we're going to be updating this asset, just adding a bit more detail to it. We started doing that yesterday by adding these borders. We're going to continue that today, finish it off, and then we'll bring this into the Unreal Engine. What I'll probably end up doing is I will take the texture into Knald, K-N-A-L-D, to create the normal map for it, and probably an occlusion map before I take it into Unreal. Some of the assets, like the one I was working on last week, I was working with Substance Painter. So a couple of the assets we'll work on in Substance Painter. Some of the other assets we'll probably work on in Mari by the Foundry. It'll just depend on what the asset actually is. So let's jump into our front viewport here. I'm just going to pull in a bit and see which sections I want to add some more detail to. Now I think I want to add a small ledge that runs along the top there. We have our borders here, here and here, as well as the ones down the bottom. I think a 3D ledge running through there would look quite good, so let's just do that. We're going to do that just by adding a box. Like that. I'm going to jump into my top viewport because the box will be behind that asset, so I want to pull it forward. That's simply because the asset is not at 0, 0, 0 world space though. I'm going to move it in until it just touches the front of that panel. Like that. Now we're going to decide on how wide we want that border to be here. So I'm going to jump into my modify tab. I'm just going to pull back on the height a bit until it looks about right. Let me just move in a bit. And again, for anyone wondering why I don't use macros when I'm moving around Max, that's simply because I'm on Twitch not just to do my own work, but to show you guys and to get you guys interested in doing 3D. And if I'm using macros, you're going to get lost as to what I'm doing. So you'll see me moving my mouse around the screen quite a bit, but that's more for your benefit so you can see what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So we have our border there, and I think that's probably okay as far as the width goes. So let's throw down the material that we're using. I'm going to open my material editor. It's this one here, so I'm just going to assign that material to that object. I'm going to throw an unwrap UVW down. We'll open our UVW editor. Just going to move my object to the side here so we can see it a bit better. Make sure I can see my texture here in my editor. Let's select our box object here, and I'm going to do a flatten mapping on this. I'm just going to move them all to the side. Now I'm looking for the front edge, which is this one here. I'm going to move that into position over the texture that we're using. We'll scale it down a little bit. Move it down a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, let's now select the top edge, I think. This one here. Now, as I've been explaining to you guys, if you're doing texture painting in a 3D program like Mari, you really don't want to be overlaying your UVs on top of each other. But because we're not going to be actually painting this up in Mari, we're probably okay to overlay it here. So that's what we're going to do. But again, I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Move it over the top, scale it down a bit more. And that should work for us. Okay, let's look at the bottom edge now. Move it into place. Scale it down, and I'm scaling it down just by holding the shift key. If you want to scale in all directions, don't use a key, but if you want to scale in one specific X or Y direction, hold the shift key down if you're using Max. Remember guys, if you've got any questions for me, please feel free to pop into chat and ask me. To give you a bit of background on what I do, I'm an architectural visualization artist now. I work for a studio here. I do contract work for a game studio, and I have worked for game studios in the past. I've also worked in cinema a little bit. So if you have any questions or anything you're not sure about, please feel free to pop into chat and ask me. I'm just going to move them over. Again, you hold down the shift key, you can strain it in one direction if you want with the move tool. So yeah, please feel free to pop into chat and ask me. If you just want to pop in and say hello, that's always cool. If you just want to watch, that's completely fine as well. Let's select these end pieces as well. It's going to be both of these. I'm just going to pop them down here to choose a part of the texture here where the wood color is similar to the color of that shelf. And I think we should be good. Actually, I'm going to choose that texture through the middle there. Just going to scale them back a bit. I'm going to move it into place. Alright, now this last remaining UV is the actual back of that that shell, which we're never going to see. It's actually up against the door, the wooden panel, wall panel. So I'm just going to scale this down and move it over the top of these textures here. Again, we're never going to see it. It's really not important, but it is important to make sure all of your UVs are within the 0 to 1 texture space for when you export it and we bring it into Unreal. So that should be good. Let's I'm actually going to turn off my edge seams here as well because I don't like them. They interfere with me seeing exactly what's going on with my model. Now we may actually also just bevel those edges a little bit. So I'm going to throw down an edit poly. Go into edge mode here and select the top, the bottom, and these outer edges here. Actually, I'm not going to bevel those because these panels are designed to sit right up next to each other. Which birdie should toenails. Great username, by the way. Hey. Cabbage 69. You guys. You guys. Max is really giving me a bit of a problem here with zooming. So I'm not going to select these outer edges here because these panels are designed to go right up next to each other. So I don't want to bevel those edges. Alright, let's see if I can zoom into this to deselect these edges. I do that just by holding the Alt key and Max. I will do the side. Yeah, I will do the side edges though. Why don't you guys send me a picture of you with the shoe on your head? How about that? So I'm going to do these front edges just here, but I'm not going to do the side edges through here. I'm also not going to use the chamfer modifier that's actually in the edit poly. I'm going to throw down a separate modifier here. We're going to pull it back a bit because 1 centimeter is way too big. We're going to go with 3 segments. I'm just going to pull back on the rounding a little bit as well. I just want a slight bevel on those edges there. Okay. So we can collapse our stack now that we've done that. So we have our shelf in now. What we've got to do, I think, is work on... Let's work on this top piece, I think. And again, I just want to put, actually I'm going to go into my front viewport here. We'll work on creating that top edge just through there. I'm only going to go down to probably here. So again, we're just going to jump back into our standard primitive here and grab a box. Again though, it's going to be pushed too far back, so I'm going to pull it forward. I'll move it forward just until it touches that panel background again. So about there. I'll look at it in my orthographic viewport, make sure that it's the right size for what I want, and I think that should work for us. We'll do this in stages. We'll do the top piece and then we'll do the piece underneath of it. So again, I'm going to open up my material editor and assign that wood panel material to it, and then also throw down an unwrap UVW. We'll open that up. And again, I'm just going to pull my model over so I can see what's going on here. and make sure I have my texture showing in the background. We're going to do the same thing again though. We're going to go with flatten mapping. We'll move them all to the side so that they're easier to work with. Select the front panel. We'll do a uniform scale at this stage, so no shift key being held. Move it into position. Now I'm going to hold down the shift key and start scaling it in different directions. So we'll scale it down, we'll scale it out a little bit. Move it just up there. Okay, let's grab the top one now. Again, we're going to scale it down uniformly. And again, guys, if you're going to be painting this in Mari, I would suggest you don't overlap them, but we're not going to paint this up in Mari, so overlapping is fine. Don't overlap your UVs, that is. I'm going to scale it down and out, and again, holding the shift key down and max to do this. Zoom in a bit, and I'm going to scale it up a little bit. Move it down so it just overlays the one underneath of it. Okay. Just going to move that off for a minute so I can rotate my model around. Now we'll select the UV underneath. Again, we're going to scale it back. And scale it down in one direction. We'll do a uniform scale until I get the width about right. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. And let's do these side panels now. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to choose part of the texture that best matches that wood. The color of that wood, that is. So we might choose a darker part of the texture, maybe down here. And again, this is the back piece, which we're never going to see, so I don't want to leave it out here because it has to be, again, within the 0 to 1 UV space. So I'm just going to scale it back and move it into, we'll put it down here. Okay, again, let's turn off our map seams so that we can see what we've done. Now we're going to put a smaller one just underneath of it. I don't really want to rebuild it, so I'm just going to grab again, with Max, if you find you can't select your object, it's because you're still in UV mode here, so just deselect that. We're going to hold down the shift key and pull a copy down. Make sure it's a copy and not an instance. Now I'm going to scale this one in a bit. Maybe like that. Now I'm going to throw down an edit poly. So I want to select the UVs, the verts I should say, at the front here. I'm just going to move them forward a little bit. That's just to give us a bit of an angle on the front there, on the front edge. I'm going to grab the ones at the back. I'm just going to pull them back a little bit. Okay. So now that we've done that, we can throw down another unwrap UVW. We'll remember the unwrap from the last time we did it. You only got one though, not two. We'll open our UVW editor, move that over so we can see what we're doing here. And again, I'm going to make sure my texture is showing in the background. You see, it's remembered our positioning for our UVWs, so we don't have to do a lot more work. We've just got to move these down. I'm actually going to scale them up a little bit as well. I'm going to scale them in, and scale them up. Okay, we'll scale them out just a little bit more. Okay, let's close that and turn off our UVs. I'm also going to again turn off map seams and peel seams so I can see what I'm doing. Alright. And again, we're not going to do... we may do just that other one just underneath of it, because again, all we're going to do that is grab our top box here. Hold down the shift key and I'm going to drag a copy down. And again, we're going to scale it in until it's just about the same width as that angled piece at the top. Okay, let's jump back into our unwrap UVW. Again, this is a bug with Max where it, if you copy the UVW map, it opens up the dialog box quite small. Again, we'll grab our UVs here, move them down, we'll scale them in a little bit, up a little bit. Going to move them up just a little bit more. Now actually this wood color is slightly different to this, so these side pieces I'm going to have to move as well. And they're these two pieces down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to scale them down. I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees, making sure my angle snap is turned on so I can get a proper 90-degree angle. And I'm just going to move them over the top of these. And that'll just make sure the color matches for us. Again, I'm going to turn off map seams and peel seams. Okay, so now we've got that top edge there done. Before we tackle that one just there, let's copy those across to the other side of the model. So I'm going to jump into my front viewport. Again, I'm going to make sure that I have UV turned off so I can select them. I'll hold down the shift key and we'll drag a copy over to the other side. Alright. Now, we'll leave them the same. Pardon me. I was going to say you could jump into here and go back into your unwrap UVW, which is what we did yesterday, to move our texture position, our UV, over the different part of the texture, because it's actually on the opposite side now. But because this is such a small piece of geometry here, it's really probably not necessary. You're not going to really notice, pardon me guys, much of a difference between this side and this side. So I think we'll just leave it where it is. Frog in my throat. So we'll leave it where it is though. We won't change the texturing on that. Again, no, I am going to turn off map and peel seams. Let's work on that edge just here, I think. So again, I'm going to throw down a box to begin with. About that size there. Again, we're going to move it forward so we can actually see it in our viewport. Pull it back until it just intersects that plane in the background. Now we'll work out how wide we want it to be. And that's a bit too wide, so I'm going to pull back on the height here. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that should work well for us. We're going to do the same thing again though. We're going to assign that texture. Now I am going to bevel it. Before I do a bevel, I'm actually going to fix the UVs. So again, an unwrap UVW. And again, we're going to do a flatten mapping. Move them off to the side so they're easier to work with. Select the front one. And move that one into position. Now I'm holding the shift key again to do a non-uniform scale. I'm going to pull it down and stretch it out a bit. And we'll make sure that that's lined up over our texture in the background there. Okay, let's work on the top edge here. Let's move that one into position. Again, with non-uniform scale by holding the shift key. We don't want that. Shrink it down just a little bit more. Okay, let's grab the bottom edge now. You guys know the drill, we'll scale it back. Scale it down by holding the shift key down. Just like that. And now this last one again is the back edge, which we're never going to see, so we're just going to select it, scale it back. And we're just going to move it down here. And this is simply to keep it within that 0 to 1 texture space. And these side pieces, again we're going to scale them back a little bit. This colour of the texture here should match quite well to that, so we'll just place them here. I am going to scale them back a bit more though. We don't want the texture UVs to be too different, the scale of the texture to be too different between them. Alright, let's make sure we turn off our map seams and fill seams. Alright, now I'm going to collapse the stack here. Make sure we're in edit poly mode. Now I'm going to select our edges, which is this one here and this one here. I'm not going to do the sides on this one, I want more of a rounded edge on that. Again, I'm going to throw down a chamfer modifier. We will go to 4 segments. And again, we're getting a nice rounded edge happening. Let me just see if I can zoom in there a bit better. a nice rounded edge happening on this corner piece, so I just want to play with my tension a little bit. Just like that. Alright, let's copy that over to the other side, so back into the front viewport. Holding down the shift key and dragging a copy over. Now with this one I think I will change the UV, so I'm going to throw down another unwrap UVW. We'll open our UV editor. Make sure we can see our texture map in the background. I'm not going to move that. All those probably, but I'm going to move these ones here, so we'll select all of those UVs. And we'll move them over to the other side. Again, I'm just holding down the shift key here to constrain it in one direction. Like that. Again, we're going to turn off our map and fill seams. Make sure we go out of edit UVW mode there. Alright. Let's jump back into our orthographic view here and take a look at our model. Now I think for these I want to add some height information here to these boxy pieces at the base, so let's start there. We'll jump back into our front viewport. We'll work with that one there to begin with, so back into our box mode here. And what you could do here is you could add another small lip to this. We'll see what it looks like without it first though. So we'll just create our box to cover the entire piece there. Like that. Again though, we're going to have to jump into our top viewport and move it forward. We could move this piece back to the 0 position if we wanted to, if we didn't want to keep moving it like this. It's not really a big deal though. Make sure it intersects that background. Work out how high we want to make this. I'm just going to jump back into my orthographic here to look at this. And we don't want it that wide, that high I should say, so we're going to pull back a little bit. Now I know I want this to be about in line with the frame here on the side. Maybe a little bit less, so I'm going to keep pulling it back. Maybe back just a little bit more. That should be good. Okay, let's assign our texture to it. Throw down an unwrap UVW and open our editor. I'm just going to move the model over so we can see it. And again, let's select everything. We're going to do a flatten mapping. Select our front one there. Just going to scale it down non-uniformly now by holding the shift key again and scale it in a bit. Okay. Let's select our side pieces now. So this one. We're going to rotate it around 90 degrees. Scale it in. Actually, I'm going to rotate it back. I don't want it to be 90 degrees. Remember, you don't have to have your UV map in the same alignment as the object space necessarily. I'm just going to move that into here because the color of this wood here is a close match to that wood there. Let's rotate around and select the other side. And we're going to do the same thing. We'll move it into position, scale it back. Now you do want to make sure that the scale of these two pieces is similar so you don't get your UVs, the texture map looking too dissimilar. Let's select the top. Again, scale it back so that the width is about the same as the side pieces. The width this way, not the length that way. And let's do this last piece at the bottom. And again, this is the back edge here that we never see. Like I was explaining yesterday, if you're making a game model, you could delete those polygons on the back edge, and you normally would for a game model, asset, prop, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to because it's only going to be two triangles. It's really not going to take up a lot of extra memory on the model, so we're going to leave the polys on the back on that back edge. But you could remove them, and normally you would remove them if you're making a game model. And again, this is a piece that we're never going to see, so it really doesn't matter where it goes on the texture map here. I'll just pop it up in there. Again, let's turn off our map seams and fill seams. Now, you see my texture is stretched here. It doesn't look quite right. The reason that has happened is because our UVs are in the wrong orientation. So I'm going to open up my UV editor again. Select those front face edges there, which are those ones. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees. I will scale it in and up. Now you see our texture is correct. So if your texture map ever looks weird, it's generally because your UVs are in the wrong orientation. So just rotate your UVs. Okay, before we start copying this across and moving it, let's add a very slight bevel to it. So I'm going to collapse my stack. And this is an important thing to remember if you're working with Macs and you're working with the standard primitives here. They always default to an edit mesh. So it's more of an editable mesh than an editable poly. And like I say to you guys, you really should always work in edit poly mode. So just right click and convert it to an edit poly. Just working in edit poly gives you a lot more options if you want to change your mesh at all. So I always suggest working in edit poly and not an edit mesh. Even though when you export the model and bring it into Unreal, it's going to be triangulated, which is more of a mesh then. But at this stage, while you're working on it, make sure it's an edit poly. Okay, before we put a chamfer on, let's select our edges. So let's select that one, and the top and the bottom. Now we'll throw down our modifier. Hey Sniper Echo, good to see you. Let's pull back on that chamfer a little bit. Let's up our segments to 3 and pull back on the tension just a little. should be okay. Let's collapse our stack again now. Okay, let's move these over. So I'm going to move that one over to this side, just by holding down the shift key and dragging. Again, make sure it's a copy and not a instance. And now I'm also going to throw down and unwrap UVW. We're going to move our UVs across as well. Make sure we can see our texture map in the background. Just holding the shift key down to constrain that there. Turn that off. Hypereka is asking me if I've had much experience with motion capture. No, not really. No, not capturing motion myself. I've used mocap in Max for animation, but this is mocap that other people have created. So yeah, I've used motion capture with Cat, which is Max's built-in animation, but I haven't actually captured motion capture myself. No. Are you going to be doing some motion capture, Sniper Echo?